I mean, to kind of shift gears to the FOP deal, we talked about it last year during, like, right before, because, I mean, the George Floyd protests happened in late May, early June, and the city voted on its budget shortly thereafter. And so there wasn't a lot of time to discuss all this. So we're a little further ahead this year. But like one of the big concerns is about like, so it's like if police won't willfully give up things they shouldn't be doing, mental health calls, traffic, even a lot of drug calls. I mean, it's like, it's really debatable whether we need to be involving the police in just somebody's addiction issue. But like, they won't give any of that up. Fine. Well, then we need to hold you accountable for, the bad behavior. And that's where then it gets really tough with the Fraternal Order of Police because, we did kind of a dive through the contract, and I'm just looking through some of the notes, but like, I mean, everything from the grievance procedure to they have, very specific legal immunity via qualified immunity and like legal representation. There's also an officer bill of rights, which is like far more onerous than you would ever give someone accused of a crime. Like, so I mean, it's like an officer can like literally kill someone and get like, and like like I love this one. The investigation can last 90 days and only be extended in writing for an initial 90 days. So it's like, I mean, there's even like real specific things about like how long they're allowed to be investigated, who's allowed to be present, what they get to get access to and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit, or does anybody have thoughts or opinions on the FOP side of things?
Well, I do want to say that I think it is important that people remember that the Fraternal Order of Police is not a public union the same way other public unions are. So, for instance, its tax designation is a 501c8. A fraternal organization. This is the same as the Masons. Okay, it is, and the one thing, the sort of like the one requirement is that you have to provide a benefit to the people that are members. Okay, most public unions, if I'm not mistaken, are classified under a 501c5. I could be wrong about that. So they're not even like tax status wise the same as other unions. I would also say that they are quite a bit different because unions generally mutually support each other. Well, we're talking about a union for the individuals who used to go and bust up union meetings. So they're also sort of different in kind, right? It's not the same thing. I know in the teacher walkout, for instance, we technically didn't have a union, right? But we're all out there and construction workers stopped. Right? Some guys that were like working on the Capitol building. Okay. That's what unions do. That's what they've traditionally done. Right. That is different than when you have groups that like used to bust up unions and their sort of protection. So it's a very different sort of organization. Right. And I think it's important to sort of keep that between us. Also, I think it's important to notice that like with officers' bills of rights, other things like that, you're creating a second class of citizen based on occupation. You're an entirely different class that has special protections based on a job that they don't have to actually like sign up for, right? This is very, very different than any other category that I know of concerning special protections and things. And what I find interesting is that they give a justification. So like allowing officers to wait 48 hours or more before being interrogated, they give a psychological justification, which is that because of the trauma, people's stories and accounts could be off. Well, that's great. If you're interested in the truth, why wouldn't you give the same amount of time to any other person who is involved in a crime? It seems to me that if the reasoning that they're given for this is honest, then why wouldn't you want the same thing for people you're arresting, for people involved in incidents that you're actually responding to? So yeah, I have a million thoughts on the FOP, but I'll limit it to that.
I don't have near as many thoughts as the FOP. I just listen to Josh's thoughts and go from there most of the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think it's worth pointing out because a lot of policymakers will blame that as like a barrier for reform or changing anything. And I think, like, one, it's worth knowing about, but then two, it's like, I mean, at our base, like, police are responding to a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense for police to respond to. But then secondarily, like, Oklahoma City has the second highest rate of police killings, in the country. So, like, we can't, I mean, at some point you have to kind of admit the problem and concede something to the solution, like, it can't just be like, well, we're not going to do anything type deal.